Today we're looking at 2 Point Museum on Switch 2, and this one's a performance review. The reason's very simple. It is a massive game. The main campaign alone can easily run 50 hours, and if you jump into sandbox mode, that thing is basically endless. Additionally, look, the game's been out for a while now. I've played every entry in the series. I know it very well. So I really just wanted to focus on how it performs and what control options we have. So if this video helps you out today, do me a favor and hit subscribe. That helps out the channel a huge amount. And now, how does this port hold up on Switch 2? Let's find out. So quickly, what's 2 Point Museum actually about? Well, at its core, it's a management sim. That classic 2-point formula of building, hiring, and somehow keeping the lights on while the world falls apart in the weirdest ways possible. This time though, you're not treating patients or running universities, you're curating museums. 6 of them in fact spread across 2 Point County. Now you will start small in Memento Mile. You're digging up fossils and unearthing prehistoric creatures. Yes, most of them too, completely made up. Then you'll move on to Passwater Cove, where you build a full marine life wing. This will be complete with aquariums and deep sea artifacts. From there, it gets strange. Whalen Lodge dives into the supernatural with haunted exhibits and the occasional ghost problem, while Bungle Wasteland, that focuses on science, salvaging weird tech from an abandoned lab. Pebbly Heights then takes things into space, complete with aliens and UFOs. And then finally, there's even a botany theme. That one's filled with overgrown flora and a few man-eating plants for good measure. Each of these locations as well are so very unique, not just visually, but mechanically. The goals, the layout, even the types of visitors you attract, they all change as you progress. The guests as well, themselves, they're a whole system to manage. You'll get science enthusiasts, families, even goths and clowns just wandering in. Each though have their own preferences. They might want snacks, clean toilets, gift shops full of souvenirs, and they will happily complain if any of that's missing. The happier they are though, the longer they'll stay and the more money they donate. Then there's the staff side of things. You'll hire experts who go out on expeditions and run your exhibits, assistants to sell tickets and manage things like cafes and gift shops, janitors that clean up messes and fix equipment, and finally security to stop thieves and kids from touching everything. It is a small roster, I will admit, but each role is incredibly important. And then you'll actually be training staff as well, and that gives them new qualifications. On top of that, think things like balancing wages, just to avoid walkouts. The expeditions then, that I kind of briefly touched on there, they are a huge part of this game's rhythm. You'll be sending teams out across 2 Point County to find new artifacts, fossils, and ancient tech to expand that collection. Each expedition has its own risk and reward setup, so you can play it safe for smaller finds or push further for rare, high-quality discoveries. Now, this is all menu-based, but it keeps it incredibly unique. You'll be choosing, how long they're going for, or maybe a situation occurs. You've got to make a decision on what they do. These expeditions, though, it's what keeps your museum evolving. It will unlock new exhibits and themes as you go. Back inside the museum walls then, there's a lot of freedom to get creative. You can design your museum layout from the ground up, so think placing walls, choosing flooring, decorating, even adding themes to each wing. Do whatever you want. Think maybe a space wing full of glowing lights right next to a haunted crypt. It's completely up to you. Tours are another system then featured here, those crowds and those expeditions to serve the very best. And here you can design routes, set guides, boost prestige by showing off your best displays. The better the layout, the smoother the guest flow, and the higher your overall museum rating climbs. And as your museum grows, of course, so do the stakes. Bigger exhibits means higher maintenance costs. Thieves, they start showing up, and suddenly you're managing firefighting drills and containment. But again, it never gets too heavy. That's kind of part of 2 Point's charm. It's got enough depth to keep you busy, but never so much that you're buried in spreadsheets. And all of this then is tied together with that trademark 2 Point humor. Silly radio ads, staff with ridiculous names, guests who take photos of the most random things. At one point I had a frozen beehive and it defrosted, attacked all the guests. It's just a really interesting concept as a whole, and that kind of slightly like plasticine, almost art style. It makes it all just instantly recognizable. It's all very slapstick. And that gets us to performance, and this is what a lot of people are going to care about. And honestly, if I had to describe it, it's okay. I do expect to see some negativity in the comments on this one because it's targeting 30 FPS. You know, with the Switch 2, I know a lot of people were hoping to see 60 become that new standard, and like, I'll admit it, kind of went into this one expecting that here. Not only is it, however, capped at 30 FPS, it's not all that stable. It's not to say it's bad, but even a few exhibits in place start to highlight some inconsistencies. You'll see here, even in the very first museum location, I'm about probably 3-4 hours in at this point. It hovers around that 28 to 29 range. Now, for the kind of game this is, I don't think 60 FPS is essential. It's not a fast-paced action experience, but it would still help with smoothness, especially when panning or zooming that camera, you know, in busy areas. A small patch here to lock things at a consistent 30, that would go a long way. You'll also then get these tiny hitches every now and then, a quick freeze or a micro stutter that happens when you place a new room or unpack a fresh exhibit. It's momentary, and to be fair, this was present on other platforms too, so it's not unique to the Switch 2 version, but still, you'll notice it. But look, honestly, given the genre, I'd say it's more of a mild annoyance than a deal breaker itself. You know, once I settled in, I honestly stopped paying attention to that frame rate and taking the game in handheld, perfect. Before I even realized it, like 3 or 4 hours had just very quickly passed. Where it does disappoint me though personally a bit is the control side of things. It's controller only, which feels like a missed opportunity. You know, for me, this was a perfect chance to take advantage of the Switch 2's mouse style control. You know, I even actually had them ready to go when I first booted up the game, but unfortunately, no, it is traditional controls only. Now, thankfully, 2Point's been doing this for years, so the interface works great with a controller. You know, menus are snappy, building is intuitive, and movement's smooth. But you can't help but think how much faster and more natural it could have felt with pointer controls, especially once your museum starts to fill out and the menus, they really kind of stack up. Visually then finally, it's a decent looking game. If you played it on the other systems, the downgrade is noticeable, but for anyone who's played these kind of sims on Switch before, this is actually one of the better examples. You know, games like this can really struggle on the older hardware, but here the level of detail has been maintained surprisingly well. You know, you can zoom all the way in and catch some great little touches, detailed exhibits, staff rushing around, guests reacting to displays. And then you can pull all the way out as well and still manage to see that full floor plan. Look, sure, there's a bit of popping when you do zoom out and in or spin the camera quickly, but considering the scale of what's happening on screen, it is impressive how it holds together. My only real complaint visually actually came right at the start, booting in. The aliasing was very noticeable on edges and a little bit of the text, but after a bit of time, once the museum filled up with props, visitors and lighting effects, it actually somewhat became harder to recognize. So basically, visually, the charm of 2Point's world carries over perfectly. It is bright, it's clean, and whether you're playing handheld or docked, I think it looks exactly how you'd hope. So overall, look, performance-wise, if you're a fan of this genre, management sims, builder games, that kind of thing, 2Point Museum is absolutely worth your time. Yes, it's seen some downgrades visually, and the frame rate isn't perfect. 30 FPS with some dips isn't ideal, but it's not a deal breaker either. What really wins here is the ability to take it on the go. There's something incredibly satisfying about tweaking your museum or running a new expedition while you're out and about. It just fits the Switch perfectly. And underneath all of that, the core game is as fantastic as ever. The humor's still sharp, the systems are refined, and that classic 2-point loop of chaos and charm, it's fully intact. So if you enjoyed the previous entries, basically, it's another easy recommendation. And hopefully, with a small update to stabilize performance, it'll become one of the best ways to play it. Alright, if you did enjoy this video, do me a favor, subscribe, helps out the channel a huge amount. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers all.